Very grateful for the presence of each and every one of you here this morning. We have quite a good number in attendance, and I'm especially grateful for that considering the weather circumstances, and you're to be commended for making the journey out and coming this morning, making your priorities correct, and coming together on the first day of the week to worship our God, and certainly I appreciate that. I really appreciated the lesson that Brother Ryan Cummings presented last Lord's Day evening. It was a very informative lesson for one thing, one that brought our attention to some great dangers that face not only the nation that we live in, but also the Lord's body, and that is that postmodernism is a danger to us because it advocates so many things that are contrary to what God has said, and especially because postmodernism basically wants everyone to accept the tenet that there is no such a thing as absolute truth. Now, Jesus on one occasion made the statement, "I am the truth and the life and the word, and no one comes to the Father but through me." He also said that we are to know the truth because the truth will make us free. And he even prayed, as we say in the shadow of the cross, "Sanctify them through thy word is truth." And I suspect that everyone who is a member of the congregation here this morning believes that you know what that truth is that Jesus spoke of. And I believe that every one of us are fairly confident that we are walking and our lives are being guided by that truth that Jesus spoke of. But you know what? You can go just a very few blocks down 169th Street, and there's a church building down there where folks are gathered together, I dare say, right about this same time. And they too believe that they have the truth and that they too are walking according to the truth, even though what they believe, what they teach, and the way that they worship is significantly different from what we do. And not only that, you can go a little bit further down 169th Street, or maybe go down Kennedy Avenue, and you're going to find another denominational church there, and they too, if you ask them, would tell you that, yes, I believe and I understand that there is the truth of God's word, and I believe that I am living according to that truth, worshiping God according to that truth, even though what they do is different from what this church over here does and different than what we do, and believe things that are different than what we believe. And if you look long enough, you're going to find plenty of people who will tell you there just simply isn't anything called absolute truth, that is a myth. And because that is true, and because Jesus said that it is the truth that sets us free, then we need to give very close attention to a very important question, and that is there such a thing as absolute truth? And especially we need to investigate that question in regard to the realm of religious matters, in regard to our relationship with God. Because truth by nature is non-contradictory. Truth by nature is in harmony with all other truth, in all other realms as far as that goes. And so if what you believe and what I believe are two different things in regard to one's relationship with God and how to have a relationship with God, if we are at odds in regard to what we believe, then there's only a couple of possibilities. And that is, one, we both could be wrong, and neither one of us really know what the truth is. Number two, you could be right, and I could be wrong. Number three, I could be right and you could be wrong. But if there is such a thing as absolute truth, and especially in religious matters, we cannot believe different things and both of us be right. That is contrary to the very character and nature of truth. And this is a question, ladies and gentlemen, that just absolutely has to be dealt with. We cannot shove it aside. We cannot dismiss it. We cannot allow ourselves to think that that is really not relevant. Because the world in general basically accepts the premise, you believe what you want to believe, I believe what I want to believe. You have your faith, I have my faith. There's many roads to heaven. You're on your road to heaven, I'm on my road to heaven, but we're all going to get to heaven. And that is absolutely something that is not maintained and supported from the scriptures of God's word. That is absolutely false. Jesus made it very, very clear, I am the way. And we're told in scriptures that God, whom Jesus, of course, is not the author of confusion. And so there is but one way to heaven. There is but one way to salvation. And there is an absolute truth, but we need to investigate that because in our world today, there are so many people who absolutely deny that. And you'll notice that I'm using that word absolutely quite a bit, or absolute quite a bit, because that's what the sermon is all about. It has to do with absolutes. What is absolute? This question has to be dealt with simply because if there is no absolute truth, then everybody's right. Then everybody's right. And if everybody is right as far as religious matters is concerned, then everybody's going to heaven. And Satan has absolutely no purpose or no hope whatsoever. We shouldn't even mess with that. We shouldn't even worry about it. If everything is right, if I cannot be wrong in my relationship with God, no matter what I believe, then why is Satan even bothering to tempt us? It makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. If everybody is right, if there is no absolute truth, then we can do anything we want to. And who could tell us that we don't have a right to do that? Fact of the matter is, truth is that which determines what is right. And we all, I think, really understand that. We just have a little bit of trouble as human beings properly applying that. I came across this chart on the internet. Your truth and my truth may not be the same. Well, that might be true, but you're not talking about the same thing if that is true. If we're talking about the same thing, and you know there's that old saying, well, you're comparing apples to oranges. Well, that's the only way that statement can be true. If we're both talking about oranges, then we better be saying the same thing. It's a fruit, it's round, it's orange in color, it tastes really good, orange juice is really good, and that sort of thing. But if we're talking about apples and oranges, I'm talking about apples and you're talking about oranges, we cannot be saying the same truths necessarily as far as everything that is involved there. Both are fruits, yes, but apples aren't orange. And they don't taste the same as oranges. And apple juice doesn't taste like orange juice. And so if we're talking about the same thing, we have to be in harmony with one another, or somebody is in error. Now, somebody might say, you know, I think Bill is a very intelligent and very handsome person. Why is y'all laughing? Now, I take that personally. I didn't say who would say that because I couldn't find anybody, first of all. But the thing about it is, there might be somebody else that say, well, I don't know that he's all that intelligent, and I don't really think he's all that good looking. But you see, what we're talking about there is subjective opinion. We're not talking about an absolute truth. We're just talking about what one person thinks and what another person thinks, and it's a matter of subjective opinion. And everybody has a right to their opinions. And we might not be in agreement with that, but when it comes to truth, there has to be that harmony, that agreement. If Juliana goes to school tomorrow and she's got a test, that she's been studying for this weekend. And on that test, they have a question that says the world is flat. And she puts a yes by that question. That's going to be marked as wrong. That's going to be marked as an incorrect answer. Because ever since Magellan circumvented the whole earth, it took him 3 years, by the way. I found that fascinating. To be on a ship for 3 years going someplace where you really don't even know where it is, and the prevalent attitude at that time was the world was flat. You just sail out there a certain distance and you fall off. But Magellan proved that wrong. But if Juliana puts on her test paper that she believes that the earth is flat, it's going to be marked wrong, because we know what the truth is, and the truth is the world is round. There's something else about truth that is very interesting and very important for us to recognize, and that is that one does not necessarily need to believe the truth for it to be true. And a perfect example of that is that in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, and that's true. That's as true as it can possibly be. But there's a lot of folk in the world that don't believe that. There's a lot of people in the world that would take issue with that statement, despite the fact that there are all kinds of scientific laws that prove that the only rational conclusion that one can make is that God in the beginning created the heavens and the earth. There's the first and second laws of thermodynamics. These are laws of nature. These are things that have been demonstrated over and over and over and over and over again, that have been proven by the scientific individuals. These have been proven to be factual things that people can observe and that can be demonstrated. And the laws of thermodynamics, the first law of thermodynamics simply says that something has always existed. That's a very layman definition of it, but that is exactly what the first law of thermodynamics teaches. Something has always existed. The second law of thermodynamics says it's not matter. It's not something physical. The first law of thermodynamics says that something's always existed. The second law of thermodynamics says it's not the universe. It's not any of the matter that makes up our universe, our cosmos. These are scientific laws of science that everybody who is honest in the scientific community recognize as an immutable law. It is absolute truth. There's another absolute truth in the laws of science, and that is the laws of causality. That law says that for everything that happens, there has to be a cause for that to happen. Now, yesterday, at the potluck for Tana's birthday, I overate. Now, there's a surprise for it. But I ate more than I should. But you know what? There was a cause for that. The main cause is I don't have a whole lot of discipline when it comes to eating good food, and there was a lot of good food there. But there was a reason why. There was a cause for me overeating. That just didn't happen. The cause of it was that it had this tremendous spread of food, and even though I intended to just take a little bit of several things, it ended up that I took a lot of everything. But that's the law of causality. And there is the law of biogenetics, which says that life comes from life. That you cannot have life except that it originates from already existing life. Now, the fact of the matter is that this pen is made up of what is called inorganic material. Inorganic material is just simply material that has no life. This pen, I don't care how long you wait, this pen will never come to life. It's impossible for this pen to come to life because it's made out of lifeless material. Now, we have men in the scientific community who have claimed to have created life in the laboratory. And yet what they did is they took some life material, some material that has life in it, that already is alive, and they introduced that into some lifeless material, and life sprang from that. But you see, that violates the law of biogenetics, saying that they have that life, well, it's in harmony with the life with biogenetics, but the fact of the matter is they did not create life, they just took life to produce more life. That's what I'm trying to say. God, as we read in the scriptures, took nothing. God, according to the scriptures, took absolutely nothing. There was nothing except him. There was no air. There was no dirt. There wasn't anything. And God took nothing and made something out of nothing. And the greatest thing that God did was take this inorganic matter, such as like this pen, but God took dirt that is inorganic matter, there's no life there, and he blew in that dirt after he had formed and fashioned man the breath of life, and mankind became a living soul. And that is in harmony with the law of biogenetics, because God is the author of life. He is life. Jesus made that statement, I am the life and the resurrection. These are laws of science that there's a lot of people in the world that absolutely reject. They have to, because they want to follow after evolutionists and atheists, and they deny all of these laws of science, and there's only one reason why they do that, and that's because they want to live whatever way they want to. They don't want to stand accountable to anyone. That's the reason why, and that's the only reason why anybody would be so foolish as to do that. I found this cartoon on the internet. Here's these people lining up, paying their money to go into the theater where there is a reassuring lie being taught in there. This other theater, which is right next door, has an inconvenient truth. There's not a single soul going in there. Everybody is going over here to this reassuring life. And you know what? That's what is happening all the time in our world. There are millions and millions and millions and millions and billions of people who are lining up to hear reassuring lies in regard to their relationship with God, and they are rejecting the truth because it calls upon them to repent. It calls upon them to change their life. It calls upon them to submit their will to the will of God. It calls upon them to turn away from the lifestyle that they have been living and to live an entirely different lifestyle. And brethren, when somebody becomes a Christian, do not make any mistake. They are being called upon to change their lives completely. And not a whole lot of folk want to do that. That's the reason why Jesus said that there are many who are called, but few are chosen. Because the vast majority of people are just content to believe a lie, despite the fact that it's going to lead them to eternal damnation. Now, good question is, how can anyone know what the truth is? Well, you know, the fact of the matter is, all of us know some truth. We all are aware of the law of gravity. That's another one of those scientific laws, and everybody's aware of that law, and everybody agrees concerning that law. Everybody agrees that if I take this pin and I turn loose of it, it's going to fall down. And it doesn't make any difference how I do that, how many times I do that. It's the same result's going to happen. It's going to fall down. Why? Because of the law of gravity. That's the reason why when we have small children, when we have babies, we protect them. When they start to crawl, when they start to get mobile, and the next thing you know, you just turn away for a moment, and the next thing you know, that little bugger's out there somewhere. They're gone. And that's the reason why we buy these expandable gates to put over the staircases, especially the ones that are going downstairs. Because if we don't have that there, this little child that does not know one single thing about gravity, doesn't have a clue, go over there, and when they first put that hand out there and there's nothing there to hold them, down the stairs they go. And a lot of times those stairs going down lead to the basement, right? What kind of floor do most basements have? Concrete. That's going to hurt. That's going to hurt, especially a newborn baby, a baby that's just old enough to begin crawling. And that's the reason why we protect our babies. That's the reason why as parents we protect our children, because of the things that they have not yet necessarily become acquainted with, and they're dangerous, and we need to try and help them. That's because there are truths that are going to be true, whether it's an innocent child getting burned because they stick their finger into a fire or something, or they fall down the steps, or what. It's truth. It's gravity, and we understand that there are those things. But we're concerned this morning more about, is there a standard that everyone must accept that has to do with our relationship with God? I mean, people understand in general the truths that have to do with just secular things. Everybody knows it's wrong to kill somebody. I don't need to go out here on the outside and every single person that comes walking by, I don't need to tell them, it's not right for you to kill anybody. They already know that. They already know that. I don't have to go out there and tell somebody, it's wrong for you to steal. Everybody knows that it's wrong to steal. That's the reason why most thieves operate under the cover of darkness. Now, the way that we deal with those two things is a different story altogether. We might deal with them differently. But the fact of the matter is, everybody understands that killing someone or stealing someone's possessions is wrong. We don't need to instruct somebody concerning those things. But those same people that understand that there is an absolute truth concerning those kinds of things want to take exception to the fact that there's an absolute truth in religion. They want to deny that, and again, I believe with all my heart that the reason why that someone would reject that is because they want to live the way that they choose. They want to be the ones to be able to set the rules and the regulation. Now, what is really interesting to me is these folks that don't believe there is such a thing as an absolute truth are more than happy to argue it with you. They're more than happy to argue the point with you. But did you know what? If you're going to argue, whether you know so or not, whether you're aware of it or not, you're saying, I recognize that there is some absolute truth. Because if there is not, why argue? Because if there is no absolute truth, then both of you or however many of you are in the conversation and arguing with one another, everybody's right. How can I argue with Tom about something if it doesn't make any difference what the both of us believe? The only way I can argue with Tom is if we recognize there is an absolute truth. I believe that my position is in harmony with that truth and that your position is wrong. And Tom would believe the same thing. Arguing is probably the most positive proof that there is an absolute standard, that there is. And there's a lot of people that are willing to argue and deny that there is such a thing as absolute truth at the same time. Our concern is finding or determining if there is an absolute truth in religion? That's what we are concerned about mostly this morning. And that is kind of interesting because according to God in Proverbs 21 and verse 2, every man's way is right in his own eyes. All God is saying is that when I walk around and as I walk around each day, whatever it is that I believe about something, I think is right. I'm always right. You're not right. You can't be right because I'm right. And God also reminded us that in the day of the judges, there was no king in Israel, but every man did that which was right in his own eyes. And we see that happening today in our society. We have all kinds of people who have no regard for the standards of society, for the laws of the land. We have people today, many people today, who are content to just operate under the assumption that whatever is okay with me is okay. It's right. And that's the reason why man cannot be the author of absolute truth. There's no way for a human individual to be the originator of absolute truth. And we see today, especially with the postmodernism that we're having to deal with, that the overall attitude is, well, everybody has a right to their own belief. But you cannot have a right to your own belief if there is an absolute truth. But man is not capable of being the originator of truth. And one of the reasons why is we change our minds all the time. We're all the time changing our minds. If we made a law, and we see this all the time, there are laws made and there are laws on the books of the cities and the states and the federal government. There are laws that are made all the time, and the next thing you know, those laws being repealed. Way back when they abolished drinking. Well, that was just absolutely wrong until somebody changed their mind and said, you know what, we're losing a lot of revenue here, and the people are drinking anyhow, so let's just go ahead and repeal that law and say, it's okay, go on. And they did. It used to be one of the absolute truths, and I already introduced it, was there was at one time, every single person who lived on the face of this earth thought that the world was flat. Until Magellan said, you know what, I want to investigate that. Now, he wanted to try and find the East Indies. That was the primary reason that he left. But he also wanted to see about circumventing the entire earth. There was a time when everybody thought that our earth, that the sun revolved around the earth. Until Copernicus, way back in the 1400s, determined that that was not right, that our solar system revolves around the sun. And that is what is correct. Man cannot be the author of absolute truth because we just keep changing things. It was a time, and it wasn't all that long ago, during my lifetime at least, that everybody was pretty much in agreement that homosexuality was a perversion. Well, that ain't right no more, according to mankind, because we just keep changing our minds about stuff. And so we cannot be the ones who come up and determine what truth really is. That has to come from someone who is unchanging, who is steadfast. That has to be our God. Everything good thing given and every perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of lights, with whom there is no variation or shifting shadow. All that James is telling us there is that God never changes. Amen. God never changes, and that's the reason why whatever it is that God says, that is the truth. That is the absolute truth. That is the truth that we must conform to. We read over in Hebrews chapter 12 and verse 8, Jesus Christ, the same yesterday and today and tomorrow. Jesus is God as well. And it is told to us in the Bible that Jesus is always the same and always will be the same. And it's important because Jesus said, I am the truth. He was the embodiment of truth while he was here upon this earth. And we need to listen to what Jesus had to say because he is the truth. You want to know what the truth is in regard to your relationship with God? Then go to the Scriptures and listen to what Jesus had to say while he was here upon this earth, and listen to the things that his apostles, who were inspired by the Holy Spirit, who spoke by inspiration of the Holy Spirit, guided by the Holy Spirit, who received what he said from Jesus, who received what he said from God the Father, came directly from heaven. You want to know what you need to do to be saved? You need to ask Jesus. And this morning what Jesus said is that except you believe in me, you shall all likewise perish. We must believe that Jesus Christ is the Son of God. And we must repent of our sins because Jesus said, except you repent, you shall all likewise perish. And we need to be willing to, with our mouth, to make confession of Jesus as the Son of God, because Jesus said, except you confess me before men, neither will I confess you before the Father. And then we must be willing to obey Jesus Christ in the waters of baptism, because Jesus himself said, he that believeth and is baptized shall be saved. And yet there are people in the world that want to argue with Jesus about the necessity of baptism. But Jesus, who is the truth, says that it is necessary. My question for everyone this morning, in the hearing of my voice, have you done what Jesus says you must do in order to be saved? It might be that there's someone here who has been baptized, but was that baptism for the reason that Jesus explained? For the remission of sins, and so that you might gain entrance into Jesus Christ, wherein is found salvation. And if you haven't been baptized for those reasons, then whatever baptism you have received is invalid. It's not a saving baptism. And there's nothing wrong with that, with the fact that you might have been taught wrong, as long as you're willing to believe the truth and obey the truth. And that's what we're doing this morning, is giving everyone who is here the opportunity to obey the truth. And if you would you not come forward while together we sing this song?